Welcome, 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 Housers, to another episode of On the Way Home. I am your host, Michael Braithwaite, and it is my great pleasure to work with the wonderful folks at Blue Door, my organization that operates north of the GTA in Peel, in Durham, and of course, York Region. We operate all sorts of housing and homelessness programs, including our construction social enterprise construct, which has launched over 400 people into the trades who we desperately need to build the housing we need, deeply affordable housing, I should add. And we do health services as well, because hey, health and housing are one. Check us out at bluedoor.ca to learn more about that. So, welcome to the On the Way Home podcast. I mean, our goal with this podcast is really to raise awareness, talk about the challenges, share solutions. We've had over 200 episodes in almost 5 years of wonderful, impactful guests, and John Fox too. And every week, I learn a little bit. I hope you do too. I hope you share this widely. And that's how we're going to make real impact and change happen. Exciting things happening in the world of housing and homelessness this week. We will most likely have talked about it on a panel before this airs, but the federal government making the biggest investment in housing ever. And that's incredible. So well needed. We're excited about that. We're going to talk with some real fine folks about, hey, what does it mean? What did it miss? What are their hopes moving forward out of this budget? So exciting times. But that is another episode. Today, we often get locked in these little silos, and we think about housing and homelessness, the challenges that are right in front of us. Maybe it's in our town, it's in our city, it's in our region, it's in our province, or just even around the country. Uh, but often enough we don't think of, hey, what does homelessness look in other parts of the what does it look like in other parts of the world? Today's guest, we have soon to be Dr. Negar Shahryari on, and she talks about the work that her and some colleagues did around a report looking at in the Middle East and North Africa, what MENA, MENA, they refer to in the report. They look at what does homelessness look like, and the effects of gender inequality and how that affects women experiencing homelessness. We talk about things like when you're faced with not being able to access education, when you can't access work, when you don't have a steady income, when there's threats of violence, when government doesn't recognize you as a person, really, how that affects levels of homelessness and how it drives women into homelessness. And we talk about some recommendations coming out of this, her hopes for the future. We talk about how difficult it was to do this work because data is not readily available, and much, much more. It's a great conversation. I learned so much about homelessness in the Middle East and North Africa and the gender inequality issues women face. I hope you'll enjoy it as much as I did. Let's go to that conversation now. Negar, so happy to have you on the podcast today. You're doing incredible work. We want to talk all about it. Before we get to that, I have to ask you the question we ask all our guests here on the way home, and that is, what does home mean to you?
Hi everyone, thanks for having me on the show. To me, home signifies much more than just a physical space. It embodies a place where I can live with dignity, feel secure, and surrounded by love and support. Uh, Over the time, the meaning of home has evolved for me, especially through my research. My understanding of how crucial these elements are for a person, and I know for many, these fundamental needs are not met, and you know, at the end, I think home in its ideal form is where we are nurtured and where we can flourish.
Amazing, and thank you for that. Great words of wisdom. Let's talk about you and your journey into this work as a researcher. In short strokes, how did you get to where you are today?
Okay, absolutely. So I'm a researcher and I'm doing my PhD in sociology, with focusing on women and gender diverse people's experiencing of homelessness and in relation to their victimization. I worked as a researcher at the Canadian Observatory on Homelessness with Professor Gates, and I completed my PhD dissertation there. And as you might know, my research interests focus on gender equality, gender based violence, homelessness, and the right to housing. Uh, in our most recent publication, we intend to unpack the link between gender inequality and homelessness in the context of MENA region, where there is a limited of empirical evidence regarding this issue. And we present that gender inequality might be a possible pathway to homelessness.
Very interesting, very interesting. And how soon before we could call you Dr. Nagar?
I think it's about in 6 months I will finish and defend my PhD. So yeah.
Perfect. Congratulations on that. We know that on this show, we've talked to people from around the world. While homelessness has many common themes, it also is very different in different parts of the world. Today, we want to talk about the Middle East and North Africa, or what we'll now refer to throughout the show as MENA, MENA, or MENA, the region. What can you tell us about its significance?
Yeah. As you know, MENA region is a strategic area geographically, and the vast majority of oil and natural gas reservoirs are located in the MENA region, which make it a significant area for the global economy. Uh, Even though there are lots of differences between MENA region countries, but they have main factors that have a direct uh, influence on the homelessness for women. They share these factors, and I could say that the MENA region ranks the lowest on the gender gap index, which compares gender gaps in economic situations, education, health, and political leadership. Second one is that most MENA countries show a collective denial regarding the LGBTQ plus people's rights in their law. So I could say that as we consider that gender inequality is a possible pathway to homelessness, so in situation when women confront to structural obstacles like in education, in economic, in employment, and in housing. We wanna here to focus on that, and we argue that economic inequality, social structure, legal system, and also family expectations, uh, they intersects with gender, put women in the vulnerable situation that creates condition for be at the risk of hidden homelessness and housing precarity.
Yeah, and absolutely that all makes sense. I mean, if you don't have access, equal access to education, to jobs, if you're under threat of violence, and all these things are pathways to homelessness, definitely. Now, I would think that homelessness, if I was to ask you what homelessness looks like in the Middle East, North Africa, it would look different in different areas, right? Like, what kind of numbers are we looking at?
Yeah.
Are there stats well kept on this, or not? I mean, even in Canada, really, we didn't start doing point in time counts until the last, say, 7 years or so.
Mm, I Do you want me
So,
to describe the homeless?
well, I'm looking at, yeah, what does it look like in North Africa and the Middle East? Are the numbers large, or do they have ways of actually, like, when you do research, do they keep good
Yeah.
counts on people experiencing homelessness? Do we have an idea about that?
Yeah, I'm going to say that as a matter of fact, in the MENA region, there are the statistics and actually data on the amount of homelessness is really rare, and because the recognition and conceptualization of homelessness vary between the countries in MENA. Some nations, including Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Bahrain, do not officially acknowledge that the presence of homelessness, citing the absence of visible street homelessness. Despite this, we know that these countries are home to foreign workers, that they meet the UN definition of homelessness. For the others country, most of them focus is on children or other vulnerable group rather than women. Yeah, it's really come back to the definition, and because there are not they don't recognize homelessness, they don't consider hidden homelessness, so the status the data on this is not reliable. you know the the women and gender diverse people homelessness rates are uh, not showing in the official data.
So, for researchers like yourself, and you recently co-authored a paper around gender inequality and homelessness in the Middle East and North Africa. How do you go about getting the data? How do you actually put that report together? I would guess it's fairly difficult.
Yeah, it was really difficult, and we mentioned in the paper that it was really hard for us to find the data. We used mostly article news, and I could say, for example, in Iran, we mentioned that 27,000 of women experience homelessness in per night. So yeah, there were some data regarding the news articles, but the official data, no.
So, what are some of the recommendations coming out of this? You see that all the different pathways through gender inequality that are pushing women um, into homelessness. What are some of the recommendations you're making moving forward?
As a matter of fact, since the gender inequality is the women pathway to homelessness, and in MENA region, where you can say you can see that rights for women in all situations does not exist. So for preventing homelessness and for achieve to this purpose, I think two intersecting changes are required. First, countries need to continue towards actualizing SDG 5 and equal rights for women. And second, national states and governments must accept that there are women who require access to emergency housing support, because in the MENA region there are no uh, governmental supports for women when they get divorced, or when their husband after their husband deaths. So without acknowledging homelessness, no action is going to be taken to solve a non-existent problem. Yeah. uh, so we might and we need to establish a national housing strategies like the other countries, and with this, each country can take and they can have the policies to address to end the homelessness. in MENA region.
How hopeful are you? I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, there's some cultural, deep cultural pieces in there. Governments that are not, sometimes they're democratic in some parts and some not. So to establish this, are you hopeful for the future? Or have conversations started? Are people pushing for this?
Yeah, actually, I think these days, because of the literacy and awareness that's happened worldwide in the MENA region, actually, some actions was taken to address this, and I hope that with our research and our uh, so the governments recognize the homelessness as a social, political issues that need to address.
And there's I mean, we see time and time again. There's an economic argument too. If the social side, if you don't care so much about the people, you might care about the dollars and the economy. And economy is always better when people have access, of course, education, good work, and are flourishing, right? For sure.
Yeah.
This is incredible work. If people want to check out the report, Nagar, that you wrote, and they want to take a look at your research, where can they go?
Uh, do you mean that how uh, can I? I'm sorry.
That's okay. I mean, just if people want to access the research report you did with your fellow
Yeah.
researchers around this work, where can they access it?
Okay, they can access it via International Journal on Homelessness, and also I usually post my works and publications, newest publication on my LinkedIn, so they can reach out to me there, and they can see our papers, the link to the website to see this.
Wonderful. Now you're 6 months away from your PhD. Fingers crossed. I'm sure it will all go well. What are your plans for the future? What do you want to do after you've accomplished your Dr. Nagar?
Yeah. As you know, I'm now on my parental leave. I had a baby, and
Oh,
in May he wanna.
congratulations.
Thank you so much. He wants to start his daycare. So after that, I'm really open to work in a research community and sector. So yeah, I wanna apply for a research job positions, and uh, I I must see that how's it going.
Perfect. Well, listen, soon to be a PhD, a brand new mother, doing incredible and impactful research. We appreciate it. Thank you for educating myself and this sector. Sometimes we get in our own little bubble, and it's hard to think of outside of our little region or outside of our province or outside of our country. And so, bringing to light some of the challenges in the Middle East and North Africa, especially around gender inequalities that are leading to women experiencing homelessness, is so appreciated. It's such important work. Thank you for that. And thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Thank you so much. Bye.